name is BK Johannesson, or Bernd, if you want to be really, that's my Norwegian real name, but call me BK. I'm industry manager for broadcast and live events, and it's really fun to have Josh with me here. I'll let him do pretty much the talk today. It's a very, very exciting, interesting story and case study we have to present to you today. I think, for me, very much focused on the broadcast and the live event side of the industry. Looking at sports is really a key pillar within live entertainment. And all of them, even though they're very successful at what they're doing, they're all asking themselves same questions. How do we stay relevant? How do we entice the next generation of audience and viewers? How do we get them engaged and interested in our sports, in our team, in our players? I think the Atlanta Braves were kind of exactly that. They were brave. They said, well, we can't just sit around, wait. We have to do something. We have to try and learn from it. And I think that's why it's profoundly a pleasure to have Josh here from Surreal Events, that were a key partner for the Atlanta Braves in setting up their next generation, interactive experience for their fans. So please, Josh, share with us how that project went.
Thank you, BK. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, good morning. How's everybody doing all right? I was supposed to be joined today on stage by the CMO from the Atlanta Braves, Adam Zimmerman. He had a personal emergency, was not able to attend, so BK was kind enough just to jump in and kind of help set the stage. And so I've got a lot to kind of talk about today, but I'm hoping this is going to be as interactive as anything else. So without further ado, I'll jump in. Just for those of you, I don't know, are you guys familiar with Surreal? Anybody here, just quick show of hands, familiar with Surreal? Okay, great, so a few people. Just quickly about Surreal, we are a pixel-streamed application that runs on Unreal Engine, and that enables brands, developers, organizations to rapidly prototype, deploy, and manage we'll call Metaverse applications in the browser. So we do all the rendering server-side in the cloud. That allows us to get the most out of the engine. So these photorealistic experiences that feel like they're running on an Xbox, feels like more like Red Dead Redemption than it does, some of the other kind of applications that run on your phone. So the platform comes sort of out of the box with all the things that you would need to do to make a multiplayer, video, voice, space, audio, text chat systems, really as a plugin that runs inside of our custom engine so that developers, organizations that have developers can jump in and begin to prototype. And this is important because as we're going to go through this presentation, you'll find out that the metaverse as it was or as it is not easy, right? It's kind of messy. So this allows for you to go faster, right? And this is the whole point of when we actually started working with the Braves. So some of the clients that we've worked with and partners that we serve, are listed here. So we've been very fortunate with the help of Epic Games and the team at Unreal Engine. Heiko, I don't know if he's in the room still or not. There he is. We've been working for the last 18 to 24 months with this team to really push the boundaries of what's possible with pixel streaming, with multiplayer, which we feel like is the way to make Metaverse really accessible for people who don't have the computational power on their individual devices to render things out at high quality. So we've been at this for the last almost 3 years now. Just going to be a quick kind of highlight, sizzle reel of some of the things that we've been doing. So just important to note that about 70% of the 3D art asset creation, some of the gameplay stuff that you just saw in the video, that was all developed by people that are not named Surreal. So we work very much in sort of like a bring your own agency, bring your own developer kind of fashion. So we have tremendous partnerships with people like Thea Interactive, studios like Saluis, which helped us actually develop a lot of the initial framework for the movement of Revit files into Unreal Engine. And the whole point is that these types of projects are really large. They take a lot of collaboration. And we want to make sure that the platform is enabled to support this. So when the Braves called us, I guess it was late in the fall of 2020, we got a call from Adam, who's not here right now, who said, hey, I was talking to a friend of mine who worked at Epic, still works at Epic. His name is John Bazell. They worked in an agency together in Atlanta. And he said, we were so inspired by what we saw during the Travis Scott concert, what's referenced oftentimes as sort of like the catalyst, the flashpoint for, what we now call Metaverse. But at the time, we weren't really using that word, right? And it was more about creating these really immersive digital experiences. And then the Metaverse really as a whole has kind of become a bit of a pejorative, right? It's like a God word. It means everything and it means nothing, right? So when we kind of strip it down to what's real and what's now, you've got tremendous opportunities to use technology that exists today, not future state, to create, we'll call them these little M metaverses, or these highly interactive multiplayer experiences. And in this case with Surreal, things that can run in the browser. And so the Braves were coming through and kind of still working through the pandemic, which rendered them sort of incapable of selling tickets, selling merchandise in the stadium, selling food and beverage, which is really the lifeline for the organization. So they said, look, two things. Not only can we can't have this kind of disruption to the continuity of our business ever again. Not even another 100-year pandemic can we go through this, because it almost killed the team. But more than that, they looked at what they saw in Fortnite and other gaming platforms, and they said, as a sport, right, baseball, which is not getting any younger traditionally, we have this tremendous opportunity to meet new fans, a new generation of fans, by building, we'll call them campfires, in the places where they're already hanging out. And so we started talking about what this would look like. It was an ongoing process for many months to say, all right, what are the assets that we have and how are we going to get started? And we eventually kind of launched into the project in June of 2020, or 2021. And so when we think about why did they want to do this, obviously, as I just mentioned, we all know, we've all seen these types of graphs. There's tremendous opportunity, tremendous potential when we think about the explosive growth within gaming. We think of the rise of omnichannel that's been happening over the last 10 years. We know that there's this convergence, right? We're seeing it. We all believe in its potential. And the Braves were, I think, very early to adopt and to innovation for the sake of trying something out. And so the whole point of this project, as we'll see and we'll talk about, is just getting started, just trying. So more kind of on the whole concept of the metaverse and why the Braves decided to go with a Surreal built solution versus something that exists in Roblox or something that exists in Fortnite, was this idea that the metaverse is messy, or oftentimes we'll say the metaverse is squishy, right? We don't really know what it is. And you've got these different platforms, right? You've got gaming platforms like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. You've got these open worlds, which are sort of like your Decentralands and sandboxes. And then you've got walled gardens, which, some of these kind of logos that are up here kind of fit in different places in between. And the concept of a walled garden is, that it's exclusively yours. Right? So if you are a brand or an organization that wants to eventually, have a 3D website, right? As we go forward into the future, we think about Metaverse as like the future of the web in 3D, and eventually these things will all connect. What level of ownership should an organization have if they're going to invest to build something, right? So we look at this and we think about the kind of pros and cons, and the reality is, for brands and for organizations that want to do this, they probably need to be in multiple channels, right? So we have these different platforms, we have these different channels that you can sort of show up in and have an activation in, have a presence in. But the concept with Surreal is eventually all those roads will lead back to your own owned environment. This is a place where you can kind of control, kind of the flow and the user experience, and know what to do with that data as a company that's trying to figure out how do we do this whole metaverse thing. So the whole concept for this, and again, I would say we do a lot of consulting work at Surreal with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, a lot of the tech consulting companies that have their own clients that fit within that category that are trying to think through, how do we get started? What does this look like? And there's two categories of companies that we come into contact with most commonly, right? On the one side, you've got companies that think, we need an ROI, right? I want to put X in and know that I can get Y out, whether that's the data, the metrics, transactions, revenue. We spend a lot of time with those people. These are kind of bigger conversations that we don't have a lot of use cases to support what the formula should look like at this point. There are no real metaverse experts right now. So there's that group, right, which takes time. And then you've got the group that are, they see this as an opportunity to innovate. And they're going to go all in on innovation because they believe that the long tail on this is not a 3-year exercise. This is not a 5-year exercise. This is the way we go forward for the next 15 or 20 years. And the Braves fit into that second category, right? So they had no big plans or dreams or illusions of having this tremendous sort of output or return on their investment when they started this. They just wanted to try. They said, look, we need to know how to do this because as a team, as a soon-to-be media company, somebody with a brand and an IP like the Braves, have a tremendous opportunity to kind of reach their audience in new ways. And so this is really all they wanted to do. So we want to build a platform that we can test, we can validate, and then we can kind of assess and figure out ways that we can actually scale this. If we think this is something for our business that is going to be repeatable, and it's going to add value. Right? So instead of trying to figure all that stuff out first, they said, let's just go forward, then we'll test, then we'll validate, and we'll decide, is this something we want to continue doing? Do we want to pivot? Right? So that ultimately makes sense for the business. So because we're able to do a lot of this stuff quickly, we're building your own metaverse platform, right? Your own multiplayer with all the kind of feature sets that would allow for collaboration, social, co-presence. You could spend a year or 2 years and fail a lot along the way. Believe me, I know, because we've been doing this for a while. Most people don't have that kind of time, so we can get something online pretty quickly, and so that's why they engaged with Surreal to start the project. So really, this was all about testing, learning. That's all we wanted to find out, right? And so we really applaud the team at the Braves, Zimmerman, Derek Schiller, for taking that kind of chance. And the entire process, like I said, we started in June of 2021. I don't know how many artists, developers here, technical artists, developers, yeah. So to take 20 gigs of Revit data and try and get it into 5 to 6 playable maps that can work for a multiplayer, that can perform on a pixel streaming application, which at the time, we have less than ideal hardware. It's getting better in the cloud, but you're not talking about running on 3080s, right? You're talking about running on much less performant hardware. So this is an entire process. It took us about 3 to 4 months to get the world built and playable and start to hook it up to our multiplayer. So from a production pipeline standpoint, like I mentioned, we worked with a great architectural visualization firm, Saluis. Scott Grant and his team helped our team just kind of get some muscle behind the project and get it moving. And we were able to get this world built and hooked up in about 4 months. The Braves, just if you guys didn't follow last year, went into the playoffs, caught fire, won the World Series. And so we actually kind of delayed the announcement and launch of this until the spring of 2022. So this was from our first event, which I think was in May or June of this year, right? And just
hello, Braves fans. I'm Mark Owens, and the future is now.
Here's the 2-2 pitch. Strike three, swinging.
The Atlanta Braves, in partnership with Major League Baseball and Surreal Events, are launching a first-of-its-kind experience by building Truist Park in the Battery Atlanta in the Metaverse.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome out to Digital Truist Park. It is the Metaverse of your world champion, Atlanta Braves.
So, pretty cool, Right, I'm gonna jump past the slide here for a second. So let's talk about the launch, right? So this summer really has been the pilot, right? This is the pilot timeline for the Braves. We're not trying to rush this out. We're not trying to, throw millions of people into this experience and not really know how to manage it, how to quantify the success. Also, we're working within the constraints, the confines of what Major League Baseball will do. Unlike some sports team or venue owners, Major League Baseball owns the digital domain and all the rights to anything that happens on Braves.com. And so, they've been using this as a project as well to kind of pilot their own endeavors, right, into Metaverse and how this is going to work for a league and at a league-wide adoption standpoint. So we weren't selling things here, right? This wasn't about microtransactions and trying to drop NFTs. It wasn't anything like that, right? It was like, let's build a digital twin of our real-life venue. Let's hold some events in there, right? And I think that's really important to think about why events matter in the metaverse, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we ran monthly 2-hour sessions, 2-hour events, and these are things like player meet and greets. We had people from the broadcast team come down and do some kind of radio type shows. There were opportunities to play mini games. They did some coupons. And what we found, right, and we capped this. These are like 500, no more than 500 person sessions every time we did this because we just didn't want to overwhelm the Braves, the team, the organization, which want to take this on and own and operate this themselves, right? They don't need a Surreal to be in between them and their Metaverse application. What's most compelling about this, and we find this collectively across all of our projects, right? When the content's good and when it's time kind of boxed appropriately, people, if they're interested in what you have to say or what you're doing, will stay, right? 30% of people will stay the entire time. So it's a 2-hour event. 30% of people would stay for at least half the time. And then other people would kind of drop off. But the average really for a 2-hour event tipped at about 1.6 hours per attendee. So what does this mean for a brand or for an organization that is looking to create something that could be sticky, something that's going to be able to captivate an audience? Whether it's a B2B or a B2C. From a B2C standpoint, for digital marketers in the room, you know that typical bounce rates or average session views for a page, a web page, can be 2 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, right? Not a lot of time. If you're scrolling, not a lot of time. But in the metaverse, you can't scroll. You actually have to kind of stroll through a multiplayer. And so there's more for people to do, which means you get more of their time, more of their attention. If you're an IP like the Braves, this is great because if I'm a fan, you get more of me. If I don't know who you are, you have an opportunity to build a relationship with me that lasts more than a few seconds. So really, really compelling. These are the kind of things that we're looking at, like even with Major League Baseball, is to say, what does this look like? And what does this look like if you scale it, right? And then you start to layer in the last slide, which are the kind of revenue monetization opportunities, which I think kind of speak for themselves, which are merchandise, exclusives, ticketing, kind of toggle over to real life activations and events and brand sponsorships. The opportunities to make money are there, but how do we do that, right? So when we think about the Braves and what's next, these are the kinds of things that we're thinking about from the Braves standpoint. At the league level, this is the things they're looking at right now. Obviously creating these sort of swag stores, right, where you're able to unlock potential new sales by creating just even an incremental kind of fulcrum on existing sales, 5%, 10% on existing real-world sales. Make everybody happy. The players are happy, the fans are happy, the league is happy, teams are happy. League's invested quite a bit into their kind of blockchain and NFT strategy, so we have things like being able to do these player meet and greets, which can be tied to collectibles. And eventually, the things that we're looking at, this is actually an example from Sport Total TV. It's a group out of Germany, if you're not familiar. But they have some really interesting in-venue tech that runs in line with a traditional broadcast stream, either just on the backside of a stream or in camera. But once you have an asset built, right, the Braves have a digital twin of their field. The next step for this in this evolution is getting that gameplay built in, streamed in real time, so that super fans like myself, I'm a huge Braves fan, can get closer to the game, and they can geek out on the kind of sports metrics, sports science stuff that is more than what you can get out of real life. And because this is a co-present platform, you can do things like having these kind of masterclass cameo type experiences with your favorite players, past or present, and talk about things like, why did he throw that pitch? What do you think's coming next? Why did they just move the defense, right? These are the kinds of experiences that you can't get in real life. You just can't. So this is why these types of things make sense, and why the Braves were very eager to just get started, right? We got to build out the twin, we got to start to test, we got to see what it's going to take to actually operate something like this so we can begin to roll this out at scale with more rich media experiences. So this is a real consulting-y slide, but it's important because the metaverse, like I said, it's this kind of pejorative, it's a hype word. Building an interactive experience, multiplayer, right? I think even Mark Petit mentioned it on LinkedIn last week when there was an article about 38 active daily users in Decentraland. You build it, will they come? A baseball analogy, right? Yeah, they'll come maybe once or twice, but will they come back a 30th time, a 60th time, consistently, to make it worthwhile for you to invest in something like this? So we have to build, a kind of a persistent loop, right? From a developer standpoint, this makes sense because we're thinking about releasing new software. From a marketing standpoint, this is about campaigns. From a metaverse standpoint, it's about putting these things together in a way that doesn't break the software, right? And so it's really important to have, this sort of pilot phase, which is what we're in with the Braves. And candidly, at Surreal, it's like most of our clients are in pilot phase. Most of these projects will probably never see the light of day, but that's okay. Because we're trying, we're learning. Every project we do, we get better, and the clients know more as well. But you've got to run through this kind of content stage where you've got to do the heavy lifting, and obviously the team at Epic and Unreal are investing heavily in the tools and the partners that can help the pipelines to get your content in more quickly into the engine and perform it. But that's a process, right? And most people don't have an Unreal Engine workflow. If you think about if everybody's going to be a metaverse company one day, we think, well, that's fine. But we think everybody's going to have Unreal Engine developers on staff one day because they're going to need the kind of muscle internally to be able to kind of operate these things cost effectively and then scale with partners. So you've got to do this test, you've got to do this feedback loop. You've got to figure out where the kind of real business value lies. This is where the Braves are kind of in this process right now to see what are the things that we should scale into Metaverse, how should we operate this, and how do we go forward. And a lot of it is by creating this Metaverse factory, where you've got teams working on the execution of things that come out of ideation sessions where you're trying to get to new releases, because this stuff isn't easy. I mean, you guys know what it takes to build a video game, even a mini game or a prototype. You've got to do this in a way that you can roll out to tens of thousands of concurrent users in a way that won't break the system. So it's not easy. It means it's not cheap either. So you really want to be smart about how you spend your time and your money. But eventually, when you get into this workflow, you start to see the use cases and the value go up, and eventually the economies of scale as you get into kind of a pattern with the right people, the right staff, the right partners, eventually the cost goes down. So this is a slide that we developed with our friends at AWS as we do a lot of this kind of roadshow consulting as we're trying to help brands figure out how do we get started? What does this look like?